Folks, welcome into another edition of That Betting Show for June 11, 2019. Your one-stop shop for all your sports betting needs. He's Teddy Durant. Give him a follow on Twitter at Teddy_Covers. I'm Donnie Seymour at Rightside VP. How about these hot topics for today, Teddy? Game 5 finals recap. Durant comes back. He's cooking. He's looking like an MVP out there. Then he goes down, and to the rescue, Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. The Wounded Warriors prevail in Toronto, Teddy. News of Durant playing drove that line down a good 3 points. Even some outlets, Teddy, had those Warriors a favorite at game time. With under 3 minutes to go, a 6-point lead for those Raptors dissipates the heart of a champion. Those Wounded Warriors, Teddy, we're getting ready for a Game 6.
Yeah, and there's so much to talk about for this ballgame. Let's start with the point spread, all right? The books got bombed on this game, absolutely bombed, every bit as bad as Game 3 when it was nothing but Raptors money, and it moved from 5.5 to 2.5, and Toronto won the game going away. Well, you talked about some of the books moved with Golden State as a favorite. What happened was a bunch of the books moved to Golden State as a favorite, got bet up to 1, got bet up to 1.5, and then right before tip-off, the wise guys poured in with a little bit of Toronto money. So guess what? The books lost Raptors bets and they lost Warriors bets. And that's always a bad thing, of course, with Golden State winning by exactly 1. There were plenty of bettors that didn't matter which side they had. They're able to cash. Not a good result for the house at all. And that's putting it mildly. So,
yeah, Teddy, let's go over.
You know how it goes. I mean, how much of this, you watch, if you're watching enough NBA Finals, it was over last night. You know, the Warriors made their run and they led the whole game. And then the Raptors, Kawhi, scored 10 in a row, and the crowd's going nuts, and there's 3 minutes left, and that game was over, all right? Toronto's about to win a title, and then Nick Nurse goes, oh, let me call a timeout. That may be the worst timeout in the history of the NBA. I mean, it cost them a title last night, period. Your team has all – Golden State was done. Stick a fork in them, done. Toronto with all the momentum. Crowd going nuts. I tweet. Looks like it's over. And, of course, what happens? Nurse calls the timeout. The Warriors did what I thought they were going to do in the last 3 minutes. They hit 3 shots in the last 3 minutes. Splash Brothers got a splash. 3 3-pointers. Toronto didn't do anything. They didn't score. You know, they had the non-call on when Gasol went to the basket and got fouled and didn't get the call. All right, you know. You had Kawhi throwing up bricks, Lowry throwing up bricks, and the final few possessions wasn't pretty for Toronto. I worry a lot about how the Raptors are going to respond to this. The markets don't seem too worried, though, in a series where the road team has now won straight up each of the last 4 ball games.
Yeah, Ted, let's talk a little bit about that because you're absolutely right. I mean, we've all been in that sporting environment, even if you're not even in the sporting environment in any walk of life, when you're rattled, when the hope is gone, the crowd is electric, you're up 6 points. And you know what the Warriors are thinking about on defense? Yes, they're champions. Yes, they want to get a stop, but they're wobbly. It's like a standing 8 count out there going, I hope they miss this next shot because if they make it, it's going to be a wrap. Now you call the timeout. Steve Kerr gets the team around and says, look, we can still do this. Get a drink of water, take a deep breath. Let's go out there and have a good defensive possession. And it all went down the stretch. And even having said that, Teddy, because you're right, that Gasol non-call was kind of interesting at that point. But even after that, you had the half-court turnover where Steph Curry, goes around behind the back, goes to Draymond Green. They call that. And then you also had the bailout call, which, yes, it was a moving screen on DeMarcus Cousins, don't get me wrong. But in that moment, in a championship moment, most of the time they're not going to call that. So you had all the looks that you wanted out there, which really made it interesting. And then how about DeMarcus Cousins? Not even in the game plan in that game, Teddy. Forced in and comes in the first couple minutes. And what does he have, like 9 points in 4 minutes? Amazing.
Well, DeMarcus Cousins can score, but DeMarcus Cousins came this close to being the GOAT. Not GOAT greatest of all time. GOAT like the GOAT, you screwed up the game. You know, he had the offensive interference that cost him a basket. He had the defensive goaltending. The only basket that Toronto scored during that entire late stretch was on the goaltending call off on the Lowry hoop, which was Cousins. And then it gets called for the moving screen on Golden State's last offensive possession. You know, this close to being run out of Golden State as the GOAT of the ballgame. Obviously, being that the last shot for Lowry, Green got a piece of it. Draymond Green was phenomenal. And Green actually kept the Warriors in the game in the fourth before Splash Brothers got hot. But again, Game 4 was all about Toronto. We know what Golden State brings to the table. And Toronto brought the energy and the intensity, and they won Game 4 going away, and I'm, like, impressed. Last night, the final 3 minutes, yeah, Golden State did what we expected them to do. They hit a couple of threes. They played a little D. But it was Toronto choking it away. I wonder how they respond to that, because they literally should. I mean, again, I don't put out a lot of tweets where I'm like, oh, they're going to win, specifically for this reason. And boy, Twitter wasn't happy with me. I mushed myself. But that was about the Raptors giving it away. As Warriors took it, but Toronto gave it away.
No, you're absolutely right, Teddy. And sending out the tweets there, we've all been there, done that before. And there's not a person sitting there watching that game did not think it was over when Kawhi hit that short jumper to go up 6. It was electric. The momentum completely shifted out there. There was nothing left to do. And then you're right. Those Splash Brothers come back and hit a couple threes, and here we go. Talk about clutch out there. Because, look, if one of those first 2 threes doesn't go down, they lose that ball game. We understand that. Just amazing stuff. And in the sports betting industry that we're in, Teddy, and in the content business, in June, thank you, Warriors, for winning, because now we get to talk about a Game 6 and maybe even a Game 7, Teddy, an extra week of content. So we do thank you on that, but we'll keep you posted here at SBRodds.com and SportsbookReview.com all week long in the NBA Finals. We're going to talk a little bit of interesting home runs, Teddy, because if I remember quite a few weeks ago when we were going over the Major League Baseball teams throughout the season, he said, I'm going to take a look at this Phillies team because I think there's going to be some overs in that ballpark. Well, how about last night? The Rockets' red glare, Teddy, the home runs bursting in air, 13 blasts last night in Philadelphia. A rainy night, but I live just outside the city, Teddy. It was muggy. It was hot. That ball was flying.
Yeah, it sure was. And it's funny because you think about this record, okay? 13 is a record. The previous record was 12. And the record of 12 was set twice by the same 2 teams, Tigers and White Sox. I can't believe this record isn't a Coors Field record, and it's still not a Coors Field record with 13 bombs last night. But obviously, if you had the over, well, not too much of a sweat. Cashed by the 4th inning. Those are always nice when it happens. Though we've seen under money in Philadelphia today. I don't know if we're going to see much more of it, though. That market has turned around a little bit over the course of the last half hour or so.
Yeah, Teddy, you get the full steam here in Philadelphia as well, too, when you take a look at it, because a lot of their bullpen arms are down. So you get those young pitchers that are that AAA quality, maybe on the major league level, and you get a night last night. It's no surprise. And we also knew that the Arizona Diamondbacks coming in hot, and they rake lefties and righties alike. It was interesting yesterday. How about this, Teddy? Ryu dominates, but the pen lets him down. We talked about yesterday about the Dodgers, bats going a little bit cooler, but getting great starting pitching and fantastic bullpen action. Well, the bullpen goes down yesterday. Ryu goes 6 innings, 1 earned run, exactly what you thought he would do with an ERA now of 1.36 on the season. Canning, the youngster we talked about, who was good yesterday as well. 6 innings, 3 earned runs, good for a quality start. But Mike Trout's 2-run blast in the 7th inning gives them the victory. Dodgers closed, Teddy, as high as 185 on the road there in the Battle of L.A.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about the totals with the Dodgers right now. Because, again, this is a team that was an over machine 2 weeks ago. They had cashed to 8-1-1 to the over in a 10-game span. And the only under came by a hook. Well, 2 things have happened since then. One is that we've seen steadily the Dodgers' baseline total get bet up. There were 7.5, 7.5s 2 years ago. And last year was more like 7.5 and 8. Now we're seeing 8.5s and 9s routinely in Dodgers games. Yesterday was 8.5 bet up to 9. Well, there's a big difference between a total of 9 and a total of 7.5 in an MLB game. Last night's game, explosion, bullpen meltdown, everything you need for an over, except the over didn't cash because the total's 9, not 7.5 anymore. Dodgers now 9-1-1 to the under in their last 11, even after last night's bullpen meltdown.
Yeah, we like to say that marine layer out there, Teddy, in L.A., keeping the ball down. But you're right. We'll keep an eye on those Dodgers as they move along. Let's talk a little bit of NFL football here. 2019 NFL season team preview on that betting show. Those Indianapolis Colts. Colts are 14-1 to win the 2019 championship, 7-1 to win the AFC, and the team total 9.5. A little bit juicy here in New Jersey out of DraftKings at -130. Colts finished 10-6 last year after going 4-2, and what a nice rebound it was. Isn't it interesting, Teddy, which we talked about a team yesterday that struggles to keep their quarterback upright, and then you have Frank Wright of the Colts saying, you know what, that's my number one priority here. Let's not get our quarterback killed. They go through a 5-game stretch, Teddy, where they don't even allow a sack, and you saw the incremental steps that Indianapolis took as the season went on, even winning a road playoff game. Came to a halt there versus the Kansas City Chiefs, but they are getting better. They're loading up on defense in the draft. They add another wide receiver in Devin Funchess. I like where this is going. Number one, I like Frank Reich as a head football coach. I think he's doing a wonderful job on offense there. I think they have a good GM in place building that defense now. There's a lot to like about these Indianapolis Colts, and it always starts with, Teddy, keep the quarterback safe and healthy. You're going to win some football games.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to pick the Patriots to go to the Super Bowl. The Patriots go to the Super Bowl on a pretty consistent basis from the AFC. Indy's my team this year. I think Indy has everything that it takes to be a Super Bowl team. You look at the numbers last year, 0.3 yards per play better than their opponents. They outgained them slightly. 0.3 yards per rush better than their opponents. Again, they outgained them slightly. Andrew Luck, QB rating of 98.7 last year, opponents 93.5. We'll talk about those two numbers. So it wasn't a huge differential between Luck and his opponents, but Indy's passing offense was good, and their passing defense was good. They were +2 in turnovers last year. It wasn't all turnovers that led to their success. They did have a very easy schedule last year. This year, the schedule closer to league average, but still easier than the average schedule. Now, we talk about what they did in the offseason. They were relatively quiet. No first-round draft choice. They had a couple of moves in free agency. They really only signed 3 free agents from other teams. 2 of them are name players. Devin Funchess at the wide receiver position and Justin Houston at defensive end. Those are 2 guys who can help this year. Playmaking wide receiver and a pass rusher. Worked on as you talked about, defensively in the draft. 7 of their 10 draft choices were on defense. And they traded out of the first round. They still got a first rounder in cornerback, Rock Ya-Sin, who's a guy out of Temple who's, nothing but upside. I love Paris Campbell as another weapon. You talk about Funchess as the big receiver and Campbell as a speedy guy for Luck to throw to. That's a nice little duo that they bring in. Of course, one of the things that was interesting about Indy, they fired their offensive line coach. They only gave 18 sacks last year. They fired their OL coach after the season. They brought back the legendary offensive mind, Howard Mudd, who was the OL coach during their glory years under Peyton Manning, and then brought in Clayton Adams as the specific offensive line coach. So interesting moves in that regard, but definitely worth noting. All right, this team has the most salary cap space in the league by a wide margin. They can still make moves. If someone gets hurt, they can replace him. And they're going to have a ton of cap space in 2020 as well. So, Indy, more than most teams, has flexibility at this stage of the game. And, of course, you talked about Frank Reich. Look, we saw it last year. It was pretty clear. Frank Reich was the brains behind Philly's Super Bowl run, not Doug Peterson. Indy got a whole lot better when he got there last year. Nothing but upside for this Colts team. I am very bullish on Andrew Luck and Indianapolis in 2019.
Yeah, the one key ingredient that you brought up as well, Ted, is when you take a look at free agency, and we always look at that Patriots movement that they have, you put that groundswell in last year, you move forward, and you don't have a lot of moving parts going into year 2, so everybody's on the same page heading into camp. Should be a fun one to watch there for the Indianapolis Colts. Overnight line movers, SBRodds.com. Best place on the internet to check those line moves, because as we say, they're moving 24/7. How about the same old song, Teddy, we sing all the time here with the Baltimore Orioles? Hey, Orioles open up as a favorite. Oh, no, they're now a dog as Toronto flips to a favorite. Blue Jays and the Orioles plus 106, total of 8.5. Thornton versus Means here, Teddy.
Yeah, I'll tell you this, not my money. Flat out, not my money coming on Toronto. Toronto stinks right now. They've lost. They got swept over the weekend. I mean, crushed in every game over the weekend. They're 3-14 their last 17 ball games. Their last 112 at-bats with runners in scoring position, they're hitting 161. Trent Thornton, though, is a guy who the markets like at least a little bit. He's not good. He really isn't good. High walk rate, low ground ball rate, but his xFIP is lower than his ERA. But what's this move about? It's all about Means. The markets don't like him. 2.67 ERA. The numbers are good, but the xFIP is bad, 4.98. And you see a guy with an xFIP more than 2 runs higher than his ERA, you can count on money coming against him. What's going on? Well, he doesn't strike out a whole lot of batters, and he's been real lucky with the home run rate. The betting market's not expecting either of those. Well, they're expecting him to continue not to strike out batters, but his luck with the home run rate not to last means a wise guy fade. That's why we're seeing money come in on the horrible Blue Jays. Again, not my money.
Yeah, not exactly a pitcher's ballpark there at Camden Yards. We'll see what happens in that game. Bettors back in Fultonavich tonight in Hotlanta. Bats were hot last night, and tempers were hot last night as Josh Donaldson got thrown out last night, and also the pitcher for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Braves open up at -135, now sit at -146. Fultonavich more down than up this year. You could probably say the same thing for Chris Archer as well. It's Archer and Fultonavich tonight in Atlanta.
Well, there's a little bit of Atlanta love here. Look. Nobody wants Pittsburgh right now, and all the metrics are showing Pittsburgh. You want to see a team that's live for a nasty June swoon. The Pirates are that team. They've lost 4 in a row right now. Archer's strikeout rate is way down this year. His ground ball rate is way down this year. Pittsburgh, not a team that the markets are excited about, not a team that I'm excited about right now at all. And of course, the rematch from the start last week. Pirates won that game 6-1. Fulton Awich wasn't pretty in that contest. He's given up 15 homers in 44 and a third innings. He gave up only 17 homers last year. But the quote from catcher Brian McCann is bet on. Quote, he's going to be there. The ball is coming out of his hand really good, and his stuff is as good as it comes. Will get more consistent and be better. Worth noting, Fulton Awich does not have a pretty track record against Pittsburgh, even prior to his ugly start last time against them.
Cubs line increases on Tuesday morning, looking to bounce back in the win column as Colorado took the game last night. And how about this little rematch? Lambert comes up, Teddy, surprises those Cubbies, but now we get that all-impressive second look here. Quintana versus Lambert. Rockies getting about a plus 114, total of 12, typical of Coors Field.
Yeah, it's going to be very hard to top what Lambert did in Chicago. He struck out 9 in 7 innings, giving up just 1 run, 4 hits, 1 walk in that ball game. Second baseman Brendan Rodgers after the game. That's what I thought up in my head of what the outcome of his debut was going to be. This guy that kind of went through him and win the minors. It gave me chills watching him get out of some of those jams. That's what he does. He grinds, he attacks hitters, and he gets soft outs. Of course, the last night, Rockies find a way. And Quintana, he has not been as good as expected. He did pitch fairly well against Colorado last week, 7 1/3, gave up just 3 runs in that ball game, but doing the same thing at Coors Field, never an easy thing.
Segment number 3, Teddy. Let's watch what you bet here on That Betting Show for June 11th. ESPN game of the night. It's going to be the Mets and the Yankees Subway Series. Rained out yesterday, so we do have a doubleheader today. Yankees favored minus 197 in the second game of the doubleheader with a total of 9. It's going to be Vargas and Paxton. Now, Teddy, this is a good point to bring up here because there's different reactions from different handicappers and different approaches in this that we do have. Talk about betting the Major League Baseball doubleheader angle. Is it better to take game 1 or do you like to take game 2? Do you like to sit back and see what happens in game 1 or 2? It's an interesting conundrum for a lot of these bettors out here.
It is, and there's 2 factors to consider for this. Number 1 is when you're talking about making predictions and making betting predictions about the second game of a doubleheader, you damn well better see the first game. It's like trying to make bets on tomorrow's games without seeing tonight's games, which means you don't get bullpen usage. And if there's one thing that you need to be able to beat baseball successfully in 2019 is a semblance of figuring out how a manager is going to use his bullpen and which relievers are going to go in which spots and when he's going to use his good guys and when he's going to use his second-tier guys. And that makes all the difference in sides. It makes all the difference in totals. And you flat out can't do that pre the first game of for the second game of a doubleheader. So I tend to leave these games alone. That's just my personal strategy. Now, when you talk about rivalry games, division games, teams in the same city, there's definitely, if you look at the long-term numbers, if you want to just bet splits, it makes sense. Take the winner of the first game, bet against them in the second game. You see more splits than not when it comes to competitive series and rivalry series. And in fact, second half of doubleheaders, you talk about division home dogs, you do fairly well betting those over a long-term sample size. This isn't a division home dog, and it's not a home dog at all. And the Mets don't win on the road. They've been god-awful, 4-17, their last 21 on the highway. So interesting to consider. Not a game I'm going to wager on. Certainly not before game 1 is already in the books.
No, I hear you. Betting game 2 there. Let's just say the Yankees pick up a nice win in game 1. Then they throw that B lineup out there in game 2, but you paid an A price for it early in the morning. Not always a smart thing to do. Brewers look to bounce back in the series game 2 tonight, Teddy, with those Milwaukee Brewers and Houston Astros minus 119, a total of 9. The Astros 45-22 in the season. And how about this home number, Teddy? 24-9 straight up. Peralta versus Peacock.
Yeah, and both teams playing well right now. Milwaukee's 4-0 their last 4. Houston, despite their injuries, 8-2 and their last 10. The markets aren't thrilled with Brad Peacock. They haven't been all year. Why? His advanced metrics numbers aren't great. His xFIP a full run higher than his ERA, and his home run rate unsustainably low. Only 7.2% of fly balls have gone out of the ballpark. The markets are saying Peacock is primed for a correction. Although, he pitched pretty well last time out. He didn't last long in the game. Only 5 innings in Seattle. Gave up 2 runs in that ball game. And, of course, the final score ended up being pretty ugly, 14-1. But that was all the Astros bullpen behind him. A.J. Hinch after the game. It's a tough loss for him because he pitched better the score is going to look up on the board and then it was a blowout. It was actually really close when he was in there. Look, Peralta started for the first time since April last Thursday, and he pitched really well in Milwaukee. Really well against the Marlins for Milwaukee, although he had a pretty ugly track record as a starter prior to this year in April in his previous 4 outings before his dominant showing last time out.
How about this, Teddy? Old man on the hill tonight. Can we get 2 solid starts from Mike Leake? How about this? Did he use a little bit too much energy in his 9-inning, 1 earned run game, complete game? We're going to have the Mariners and the Twins today. Heavy favorite for the Twins, Teddy, minus 195 with a total of 9.5. The Mariners, 28-41 on the season, 15-19 away. The Twins, 43-21 on the season, 19-9 at home. Leake versus Perez.
Yeah, I mean, the Twins have built up a pretty darn big betting bandwagon. The wise guys like them. The public has caught on. And when you're vying with Houston is the best record in the majors, and you keep winning games, you're going to start seeing prices like this, where they're $2 favorites. And look, Seattle's been pretty bad. They had a pretty decent series over the weekend in LA, got the bats going that they kind of needed to do. But it's hard for me to trust Mike Leake today. He's coming off that complete game win over the Astros, that 14-1 win we were just talking about a minute ago. He had only 6 hits, 2 walks, struck out 5, but he threw 119 pitches in that ball game. By far his highest pitch count of the season. Now, Leake's a veteran. He can handle, in theory, longer pitch, going deep into games and higher pitch counts. But when you're talking about a team that's bombing home runs like the Twins and a hurler like Leake, who's can be vulnerable to them and coming off coming off an extended showing, I'm not expecting Mike Leake's best game today. The question is what we're going to see from Martin Perez and the Twins bullpen behind him. Perez was pretty good early on. He's shown signs of late of vulnerability. It could be a concern here, although Seattle, again, the Mariners have been bad since mid-April. They're not a team I'm particularly excited about getting to the betting window with in this one.
Quick off the mic segment today here, Teddy. Kevin Durant shaking up that free agency landscape. There's going to be a lot of fallout. Obviously, we're still invested in the NBA Finals Game 6 and possibly a Game 7 on Father's Day on Sunday night, but free agency landscape completely changes here with this injury. Now we're looking at, it is a business in the NBA. We know the payroll that the Golden State Warriors have. Is this going to be a loyalty thing where you supermax Kevin Durant because he gave it all out there on the court? Or do you take that wait-and-see approach with him and say, well, is somebody else going to give him the news? Because as we take a look at, he was dead set and ready, as many pundits said, to go to the New York Knicks or get out of town. He wants to have his own win. Now this changes a lot of teams in the NBA in the flux here, Teddy.
It's a disaster. I mean, I cannot imagine a worse scenario than what happened with Kevin Durant last night. They push him to get back on the floor, push him to get back on the floor, push him to get back on the floor. He gets back on the floor, looks great for 12 minutes, and then rips his Achilles. It's horrible. Okay? Now, what happens is nobody's going to play again with any injury, And we're talking about a guy who's about to sign one of the biggest free agent deals in NBA history, and now that's all in jeopardy. When you're putting that kind of money on the line, it's going to change the way the game is played. And you think injuries were bad? The will he, won't he kind of thing was bad before. It's only going to get worse now. It's a bad thing for the NBA. I'm sorry it happened. And I'm sorry for Kevin Durant, on the eve of free agency, having an injury like this. It's just devastating news. And that certainly affected the point spread for Game 6. I thought Golden State would come higher. But in fact, Golden State came fairly low. And the early money has come on Toronto, which tells you the markets expect Kevin Durant's absence to be felt once again at Oracle Arena.
Looks like it might be Eric Shaxi is going to be the last game at Oracle on Thursday night. We'll get you that already more as the week goes on here on That Betting Show. But thank you for tuning in today, June 11, 2019, your one-stop shop for all your sports betting needs. We went over a little bit of our allotted time limit, but hey, we had a lot to talk about here. That's going to happen. He's Teddy Safransky. Once again, give him a follow on Twitter at Teddy_Covers. I'm Donnie Seymour at Right Side VP. We'll tune in tomorrow. We'll get you ready for the NHL Game 7. We'll get you ready for Game 6. Join us tomorrow. Good luck on all your tickets tonight, and we'll see you again tomorrow.